belief that we Catholics have that is generally not shared by other faith traditions. I realize. You won't find the word purgatory in Scripture, but there is a reference in the second book of Maccabees. Which some Protestant Bibles don't have, but nonetheless. This Judas Maccabeus led a Jewish revolt, which ultimately got put down. And this is part of the story. Judas rallied his army and went to the city of Adullam. As the week was ending, they purified themselves according to custom and kept the Sabbath there. On the following day, since the task had now become urgent, Judas and his men went to gather up the bodies of the slain and bury them with their kinsmen in their ancestral tombs. But under the tunic of each of the dead, they found amulets sacred to the idols of Jamnia, which the law forbids the Jews to wear. So it was clear to all that this was why these men had been slain. They all therefore praised the ways of the Lord, the just judge who brings to light the things that are hidden. Turning to supplication, they prayed that this sinful deed might be fully blotted out. The noble Judas warned the soldiers to keep themselves free from sin, for they had seen with their own eyes what had happened because of the sin of those who had fallen. He then took up a collection among all his soldiers amounting to 2,000 silver drachmas, which he sent to Jerusalem to provide for an expiatory sacrifice. In doing this, he acted in a very excellent and noble way, inasmuch as he had the resurrection of the dead in view. For if he were not expecting the fallen to rise again, it would have been useless and foolish to pray for them in death. So, that's the idea then that we've just been talking about, isn't it? That they saw the sin of these, their slain brethren, and wanted them to enjoy the resurrection of the dead. And so they prayed for them and had sacrifice offered for them, that their sin might be blotted out, as it said. So there it is. In the second book of Maccabees. Anything else about purgatory?
What about children and babies?
Oh, yes. Well, now that you raise a good point. Purgatory is not the same thing as limbo. Okay, never was. Where the idea of limbo came from was early Christians began to think about it, and we believe certainly that the death and resurrection of Jesus brought salvation, right? Made it possible to go to heaven. Okay, so all the people that lived and died then before he did that, what the heck happened to them? Where'd they go? You know, if it wasn't possible to go to heaven until Jesus died and rose from the dead, then what about those folks? That gave birth to the idea of limbo. Later, that idea got applied to unbaptized children, but Pope Benedict XVI, in more recent years, basically, I won't say quite threw out, but he basically said, don't worry about the salvation of children. Don't worry about the salvation. God's a merciful God. Okay? So that is not the same thing. But that's a very good question.
In fact, the church doesn't even teach that anymore.
Yeah. Benedict basically just said, no, that. Mm-mm. But it wasn't the original idea anyway.
And they quoted this New Testament passage, unless you're born of water and spirit, you can't enter into the kingdom. And so that was a passage that, well, what happens to an infant who has not been baptized and entered into water and spirit? He dies of sins, you know, what's going to happen to them? Well, they go to heaven because they have no sin.
Mhm.
You have no personal
They
sin.
have no chance of sin.
Only sin they possibly have is original.
Original sin.
Yeah.
And that's by the mercy of God that God created them, God will take care of himself.
When my little brother died, they were in a Catholic hospital, and the nun did what she called a conditional baptism. She said she
did.
wasn't a priest, but she baptized him.
Any person can baptize in
In a danger of death.
the day
Yeah.
of death.
Conditionals is actually when you're not sure if they're baptized or not. So you go ahead and baptize them, but it's done conditionally. If you've not yet been baptized, then not baptized.
I don't know that you have or not, but we'll
Make sure
just
it
to make
takes
sure.
time.
Yeah.
But what she did, she wasn't conditional. She did the right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just as good as I could have done.
Right.
And I wouldn't redo it because you've already been baptized. You've been baptized once, never be baptized.
So even if it's somebody like,
Yeah.
She would, you might do a rite, a welcoming rite or something, the parents wanted that, but you wouldn't do the rite of baptism because it's already been done.
Yeah. Once it's done, it's done. We'll talk about that when we get into baptism. Not too long from now. Okay. So that's basically purgatory. Unless you have any questions about that. But it does jive. It very much fits in with that whole idea of communion of saints. They very much fit together because we can pray for those people and our prayers aid them. Okay. We also believe that, as I think all Christians do, that Jesus will come again a second time in glory. And then evil will be overcome for all time, finally, and all creation and all humanity will be restored to that original state that we had with God. Okay? Except for those who have chosen to live apart from Him eternally in hell. They will remain there.
Or go there.
Or go there, yes, if they're not already dead. Right. One of the things that, of course, God's kingdom will be fully established at that point. Fully established. God's kingdom is already here, but it'll be all the way whenever Christ comes again. And so one of the things that we believe will also happen, I'm getting ahead of myself. At that time, then each person who has already died at that point has been personally, individually judged. But when Christ comes again in glory, then humanity as a whole will be judged. So, as I think it was put in your leaflet here, that it's all the deeds of everyone, good or bad, at that point will be known. That's a frightening thought. But everything we've ever done is going to be revealed before everybody. Boy, that'll be something. That will be something. But He will judge humanity as a whole. And this is something that's stated a little more clearly, perhaps, in the Apostles' Creed than the Nicene. belief of what we call the resurrection of the body.